Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from Rotowire here with the Week 9 fantasy football players to avoid. Starting out at quarterback, look, some of these guys you're going to start because you have to and you drafted them that way, but DFS, maybe you're thinking about them a little bit differently. Lamar Jackson, again, we love Lamar Jackson, but 240 or fewer yards, way less in some games in his last 3 games. He has 3 passing touchdowns in those games. His rushing yards earlier in the season were great, between 43 and 77 in his last 3. Those aren't the Lamar Jackson numbers. You went obviously in season long, you're starting him and he's going to get enough points to be your QB1, but he's definitely not the top 3 option you were hoping for. And certainly it's not helping with Rashad Bateman with the foot injury. He could be out significant time. Just again, further knocking those weapons down. Not good there. And then Tom Brady, and we know this, right? 1 touchdown or fewer in the last 3 games. As of right now, defenses, and we've talked about this in other shows, defenses lining up 5-man fronts, stunting. Defense is not tipping off what they're doing before the snap. Brady doesn't have all that data available to him before the snap like he used to have. Receivers dealing sporadically on and off with injuries. It's just a bad situation. I'm hoping he gets right after their bye week, but you're going to have to probably wait it out. He's a real tough start right now, even in 12-team leagues, unless you have nobody else. I only have 1 tight end. I was excited that Harrison Bryant was moving in, more into the lead role with David Njoku out. But Bryant's role really didn't change. And not only that, he had been getting multiple targets a game with Njoku. So at least you figure he'd continue that. No, didn't get a single target against the Bengals. He should still get a few targets a game as he was, but that was very troubling to see. So maybe Harrison Bryant is not the answer for those who were hoping to pick up a tight end with David Njoku out. Wide receivers next. Brandin Cooks, 6 or fewer targets in his last 3 games. His yardage, 20, 46, and 73. Now it's gone up, and that's good. But now that the trade deadline's over, he hasn't been moved. You wonder if he just wants to get through this year, and the motivation may not be there on a team that is definitely not competitive right now, and a team that wants to run a lot. And Nico Collins may be out again. Now, that worked out for Cooks last week, but if Collins does come back and they're splitting some targets, maybe not so good when Cooks is only seeing 6 or less a game. And then this week his matchup is brutal against the Eagles, and that could be a real downside game. And then again, we go back to the Falcons, Drake London, just 10 total targets over his last 3 games. He has a total of 8 catches for 80 yards in those 3 games. And obviously, you're doing the math, that's like 27 yards a game. And again, super talented player, but you really can't trust him and start him in most fantasy lineups. And then Michael Gallup of the Cowboys. We were very excited when the team took their time bringing him back from the knee injury, figuring that, he'd come back at full throttle. Hasn't really worked out. Now, he has had 15 targets over his last 3 games. He's only caught 6 of them, less than half, for a total of 77 yards. And again, just like London, doing the math, it's like 26 yards a game. So not so hot there until there are signs of fantasy life for Michael Gallup. You probably got to leave him on your bench. And then some people got excited about Robbie Anderson going to Arizona. And in the first week, we understood it was a short week. He traded on Monday, the game on Thursday. You're not going to acclimate. But we talk about this. With teams, wide receivers who are not superstars, they switch teams. It's often a very rocky transition. I mean, you often have to learn an offense. And if you're not an alpha, the quarterback's not going to force you targets. And we actually saw in that short week when he got acquired, he had 18% target share. He only played not target share, snap share. I'm sorry, 18% snap share. He only played 9% of the snaps the following week. Now his targets went up from 1 to 3, but his plays on the field went way down. So that was very concerning. Actually, when they were in the very rare 2 receiver sets, it was Rondale Moore who was seeing the action, and Moore is starting to come on. So Robbie Anderson may not come around this season, and I'm not counting on that at all. I would not recommend rostering him unless you're in a very deep league and you're hoping for a small return. Running backs are next. Darrell Henderson. Keep saying it's so clear Sean McVay does not want to use him. 2 games without Cam Akers, 16 carries, 59 yards. That's it. 4 catches, 23 yards. So it's a total of barely 80 yards in 2 games. Now it's 80 yards as a running back too, right? Ronnie Rivers was starting and seeing more carries. Malcolm Brown saw more carries last week than Darrell Henderson. And now Karen Williams is supposed to come back from the IR. There's talk they want to get Cam Akers back involved. So look, Darrell Henderson is going to be a low volume RB2 going forward, and that could shrink if Karen Williams ends up being something better than they had hoped. Next, Brian Robinson. Now, we saw Antonio Gibson being used more as a pass receiver last week, but the snap share wasn't good. Brian Robinson had been seeing almost half the snaps. He went down to 25% last week, and it was not a blowout game, a game where they had to, put all the passing weapons on the field. That was not the case. But we've seen that the yards, he had 8 carries for 20 yards. So in his last 3 games, 45 carries for 153. So basically, I don't think at this stage right now, Brian Robinson is a very productive running back. And that's not going to be a good thing. So right now, with that low snap share last week, again, maybe a flex, but Gibson was used as a receiver. At some point, the coaches have to realize Gibson does fumble. Gibson makes some mistakes in not running with nuance, but he is so far more talented than Brian Robinson today. I can't speak to the future, but right now it's very clear they're different. A.J. Dillon, we bring him up a lot. 63 yards or fewer and no touchdowns in his last 3. He had a 14 carry, a 6 carry in there. He was seeing like 15 to 18 carries regularly early in the season. That's not quite been the case lately. And Aaron Jones and somebody, we were talking about in the thread yesterday, somebody said Dillon missed like 2 quarters. No, he missed like a series. I don't even think it was a full series. He came off at the end of one. Then he was high-fiving guys on the sidelines. He was back in the game very quickly. So he was not out much. And his play percentage was way down in that game. Aaron Jones took a big lead in the backfield competition. Now, that could go week to week, but right now it's not trending that way. And then Najee Harris, between 49 and 80 yards in his last 3 games. He did score once. He has 11 receptions. But, again, you've known this for a while. RB2, and that's about it. And there could be a point where Jaylen Warren gets more work. Now, the big names. DeAndre Swift. So the coach said he wasn't fully healthy yet. He was rested through the bye. He missed multiple games before the bye. He practiced in full after the bye. And then 5 carries, 5 targets. Now, fortunately, he had the 5 targets. He came up with a touchdown catch to bail his fantasy day. But remember last year, he came back from that injury late in the season, and they really limited his play time on the field. And I wonder if it's just maybe he's a slow healer. That certainly seems after 2 separate injuries in 2 separate years, this may be the case. And then Courtland Sutton, he started the year red hot. Well, not so much now. And he's had some bad matchups, okay? So we'll give him that. Saw a lot of Sauce Gardner last week. Jerry Judy's coming on. Greg Dulcich is coming on. Meanwhile, Courtland Sutton, less than 24 yards in his last 3 games. Total of 50 yards. Now, in those 3 games, 16 targets, caught 6 of them. So that's obviously, do the math, as well less than 50% of them he's catching. So it's just not going on for Courtland Sutton. They're on a bye this week, and you always hope teams figure things out on a bye, but I'd be pretty nervous about starting him coming out of the bye unless you had no other option. And then Deontay Johnson, his last 3 games, 28 yards, 42, and 35, no touchdowns. We're averaging in the mid-30s in yardage, but his targets, 7, 9, and 10. So the targets have been great. So that's the 26 targets, but he's only caught 15 of them. And for where he gets the ball thrown to him, you're expecting that catch rate to be, up in the 67% range, certainly not in the 50% range. So, yeah, not so good there. Maybe I was off on that percentage a little bit, but 15 out of 26, again, still not good. That's, again, the percentage was off, but he should be catching more passes with that many targets than he is. Look, if you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe button. If you want free content at Rotowire, got you covered for 2 days. No credit card needed, just an email address. Go to rotowire.com/try. Give us a try. Always love chatting with everybody. I guess it was short today. You don't see any questions in the hopper. So everybody have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.